Unbelievable. Shocking, really. And this is not a video game. The average U.S. citizen is over 10 times more likely to be killed by a police officer than by a terrorist. Hey! After witnessing a wave of police brutality videos which appear on my newsfeed every day, I decided to investigate the problem of police brutality in America. In the United States, the police kills 2 people every day.
Put your hands up! Put your hands up!
These are the official numbers. According to unofficial numbers, the police kills 4 people a day.
Hey!
Drop it.
The killing of people in this country has become a routine, something normal. It seems that human life is ceasing to be the most valued human right. 1, 2, and just like that, the person is dead. We're in Minneapolis, Minnesota. This is a quiet and a fairly small city in northern United States. As of recent, several police brutality cases have happened here. We're on our way to Betty Smith's house. 7 years ago, Officer Timothy Devick took her son's life. The officer is still free and in service. Sometimes their patrol car drives by this very road right next to Betty's house, and the officers wave at Betty. I can just not imagine what Betty must have went through.
Hi.
Betty.
I took the wrong way.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you so much for having us.
This is Quincy from graduation of high school, and there's a picture of him. I say my son wasn't even as tall as I am, and I'd have heels on.
That's true.
Yeah. He played football. He was on the wrestling team.
Everything happened right before Christmas, Betty explains. Her son left his girlfriend's house. They were breaking up. His girlfriend got angry and called the police, adding one fatal detail, that Quincy had a rifle, a lie that cost Quincy his life. 5 police officers, without any interest in finding out the truth, tackled Quincy and started beating him. Shortly after, Quincy was pronounced dead.
You see, the police here, they love to swoop down on you, especially at night. 5 or 6 police will get on you, one kicking you, while the other one trying to handcuff you and hold you down, one tasing you.
He's not resisting arrest. He's on the ground. You have him in handcuffs. Why is there a need to choke him? Why is there a need to hit him in the back with a rifle?
She doesn't have the video of the actual killing, just a homicide report. But there is a video of Officer Devick apprehending another suspect in a similar way. He put his hands up, and boom, he gets a punch in the face, a kick by the other officer. 4th officer just kicks him. Unbelievable.
My child had his hands up, which says I surrender. But our court system says that means he wants to fight.
Yeah, she said, still he had his hands up like that.
That meant
he had his hands
that he was trying to hit.
Up. Now you gonna fight against a guy got a gun?
When Quincy Sr. died, his son, Quincy Deshawn Smith Jr., was just 2 months old. Hey, man. How are you? I'm Miguel.
He's growing up.
All right.
He knows his father was tased. He knows his father died from that. And he knows the other good things about his dad. We leave it at that. He's 7.
Oh, look at that. You got your little name tag here. Quincy.
Yeah, picked him up from school and he
All right.
had everything.
All right. You try to be...
This is my dad.
Yes.
This is me when I was little. And he was feeding me my bottle. And my dad was sitting on the couch. And I was sitting on my dad's lap.
As long as God gives me breath, I'm going to be fighting for the injustice and let Officer Devick and the other 4 realize you cannot just murder someone.
Ernie, don't you move! I will shoot you! Hands up! Now! Drop the knife now! Shots fired! Shots fired! On the ground now! On the ground! Get back now!
After the riots in Ferguson, where Michael Brown was killed at the hands of the police, 24 states have ratified a law that makes it much harder for police to get away with excessive force. Perhaps this was the reason why Troy Scheffler is still alive today.
So we're approaching the house of Troy Scheffler, one of the victims of police brutality here in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Is she friendly? Hey, Shandy. Shandy. You know, we'll just track you and film you as you ride the bike.
Together with Troy, we're headed to the crime scene where everything happened. Troy tells us about that night, how he was riding his bike around midnight, suddenly flashed by the searchlights of 2 police cars, and then in a rude manner, asked by Officer Mark McDonough to show him his ID.
I had called 911 when I was still riding up when the first 2 squads
What was your
passed me.
question to them?
What's going on? Are they interested in me? And if they're not interested in me, I'd appreciate if they, didn't act like they were.
Let me see your ID. Do you have an ID on you? Am I breaking the law? Well, you came up to me, didn't you? Asked why you're here and following me.
Every time I'd ask him a question, he'd respond with the same question. What's your name? Well, what's your name?
Who are you? Well, I'm the police.
Literally maybe a second or 2 after that, he's like, actually, this is how it's gonna go. I'm gonna put handcuffs on you, and you're gonna go in the back of my squad car. So at that point, I'm getting arrested? I'm like, what am I being arrested for? And then he responded, for being a
Huh.
Put your hands behind your back. Why am I getting arrested? Excuse me?
And I'm like, excuse me? And then at that point, he just pushes me down, and I fell on the side, and then he just jumped on me. So I get dragged right to the side of the rear right wheel well of the squad car. He starts taking my head and hitting it against the wheel well and the tire or the metal.
Wow.
It was hard to tell.
Oh, you have an ID. Do you? Answer. What's your name? Oh. Hmm? Oh. You remember your name yet? Oh.
I went to school to be a cop, ironically, many moons ago.
Wow.
Many trips around the sun.
That's a twist in the story, okay.
And virtually all police officers will only befriend other police officers. They really don't have many just usual civilian friends. It's just their little world that they establish. And as I said before, they developed this us against them routine.
She's got, what, M16s, is that?
Yeah, they recently obtained them from the U.S. military.
For what?
Well, that's a good question. And when we investigated everything...
In Coon Rapids?
Right, exactly. A small Minnesota suburb, they think that they need to be armed like they're in Vietnam or something.
Police service is still a constant risk for the officer. The man in the white shirt with his back towards the camera is an ex-police officer. He's the only one from the other side who has agreed to speak to us under the condition that his identity remains hidden.
How long have you served?
About 25 years.
25 years as a police officer. Ever had to shoot someone?
No. We draw our guns frequently, and people usually do the right thing and surrender, and you never hear about it at all. The standard issue that most departments are using. A Glock, varies in caliber, size of the bullet. AR-15.
So does this fire automatically, like poof, 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 or,
Departments have different standards. Some have just a single action. Some have 3-round bursts, and some have full auto.
Why does the police, and in this case the Coon Rapids, a small town police precinct, needs AR-15 rifles?
Better to have a tool and not need it than need the tool and not have it. What the rifle phenomena was caused by is the LA robbery probably 20 years ago, where the bad guys were wearing Kevlar suits basically, and they had rifles. We have rules to follow, and in order for you to use deadly force, you have to meet the requirements to use that force. If you use excessive force, that's when you get in trouble, you get sued, you go to jail.
Do you feel that officers like that ruin the image of the police in the United States in general?
We have 50 states. You could probably find at least one bad thing that happens in every state, but then when you start running those stories day after day, people think there's a huge amount. Yes, it happens. Yes, there are bad cops, but we have to remember that 99% of the cops are good and doing the right thing and helping people.
No justice, no peace. Jail, brutal police. No justice, no peace. Jail, brutal police. No justice.
Okay, here we are at the Communities United Against Police Brutality. Thanks, we're good.
Their job is to license police officers and hold them to professional standards. And let me tell you something, they are an epic fail. We could stop police brutality in Minnesota right now. But they choose not to do their job. Are we gonna keep putting up with that? No! Sure as heck hope not. We need to be out here every time they have one of their meetings.
So Troy, what do you think about this meeting? How does it reflect on the reality of the situation?
Well, shows that there's a lot of people that are frustrated with the way things are going. A convenience for the government in which it divides people
To conquer.
to ultimately conquer them.
The man just saying on this call on those that have died at the hands of the police, at the hands of police brutality. These are the names of the people. Our people are not numbers. Our people have names.
We are at the Post Board of Minneapolis, and we are about to meet with the Communities United Against Police Brutality.
No other mother should have to be told at any time, definitely not before the holiday, that her son has been murdered, that he was not armed, and whatever it was, it does not take 5 officers simultaneously tasing a young man and wonder if he's going to die. Imagine yourself laying there and there's a taser here, there's a taser here, there's a taser here. I had to look at those burns on my baby's body. None of the protocol was followed. Quincy was murdered and it was not his fault. I am 66 years old, maybe older than most of you. Now you try and imagine raising a baby, back to the daycare, the diapers, and trying to do a job and maintain your household. And the city where my taxes go is not offering me any help, telling me that my son is the criminal.
You have a complaint form. You let people think that something will happen, but it never does.
My understanding wasn't paid. Can I finish?
Yes,
Can I finish? Because I've been very gracious. I've given you more
Yes,
than
sir.
the time that was on the agenda because you have folks that are out here to speak, and I want them to speak. That's why we have an open forum at the beginning of the meeting. We did respond to your request for data. We provided a considerable amount of data.
I know they didn't investigate because in our 300-page complaint, there's witnesses listed, not a single one was ever called. So how do you investigate and do a full investigation if you don't talk to everyone that's listed? So like I said, I'm appealing to you because this has dramatically impacted my family in a negative way for minimum of 10 years.
I have to say this is shameful, the fact that people are here and I'm sitting here listening to a white man who for 10 years has not gotten justice. What would I expect to see? When you turn your backs on your own?
Hold on. Don't touch me. Came over. Don't touch me. Damn, man. I can't breathe.
Whatever happened to the police? The police! Here I am in New York, and I'm not alone this time. I'm with Troy. He came out here with us all the way from Minnesota to participate in Stop October, nationwide actually protests, but Stop October specifically New York protest against police brutality.
It's guilty as hell. Indict, convict, send those killer cops to jail. The whole damn system is guilty as hell. Indict, convict.
But why are the mass media outlets not here, you know? Where is the CNN and the Fox?
Mass media is invested in the propaganda of demonizing black male youth and black people across this country.
Among the protesters, I spotted Quentin Tarantino, a world-famous filmmaker of films such as Kill Bill, Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction. I guess he decided that reality is at times more gruesome than his films.
In your idea, is this an issue that is being dealt with in our country, police brutality, or is this something that is not being dealt with the right way?
No, it's not being dealt with in any way at all, as far as I can see. That's why we're out here, all right? You know, if it was being dealt with, then these murdering cops would be in jail or be at least facing trial.
Right.
But that's not what's going on. So my whole thing is I actually think that there is a corruption inside of the police. The culture is corrupt, and that needs to be changed.
If you are part of this protest against PB, then why do you make such violent movies?
They got nothing to do with nothing.
Exactly.
That's got nothing to do with nothing.
This thing involves people, all kinds of people, from someone as great and wonderful as Mr. Tarantino to simple folk, absolutely simple folk who are here also fighting the cause because they want to see change, they want to see a difference.
Get ready to lose some weight, y'all. Get ready to lose some weight. Get ready to lose some weight.
The police are trained to be aggressive.
As any black person, brown person, Latino person go up to poor communities like Harlem, like South Bronx, none of them don't have a family member, don't have a friend who's either in jail, or has been brutalized by the police.
What is this picture about?
This is Michael Tyree. He was killed in a jail in California. I didn't know about this man until today, actually. So it's sad.
Hold it, you don't touch nobody, you. You don't touch nobody. I got a message. Y'all probably say you. It's our loved one's life. This is our life. You know what I mean? I'm tired of being tired.
How does it feel for you coming out of a small community like Coon Rapids and being here in New York City and, and being a part of this?
Yeah, I'm inspired to continue the fight, but at the same time, I think that a lot of these people are marginalizing other people that are attacked by police. Also, it seems that there's a huge ethnic divide in how and who they're protesting for.
I said, we ain't gonna stop till people are free.
The magnitude of this protest truly shocked me. It became clear that the killing of people in the streets of American cities isn't a tragic accident. It isn't a flaw of the system. It is the system, the new system of law enforcement within American communities. Remembering the past is not something the victims' families like to do. It's difficult to relive those horrible moments. Exceptions were made for our crew. Many mothers hope that bringing to light these atrocities will help them finally see justice.
Kyan Livingston, 37-year-old mom, died in a filthy cell in Brooklyn Central Booking after she and other occupants of the cell begged the NYPD for medical attention for 7 hours. Oh, look at the door. Wow. Hi, Anita.
Hi.
How are you?
Fine.
Thanks so much for finding the time to meet us. And I'm sorry to bring you back into that day.
It's every day.
But
every day. Yep, Kyan. My Kai. I saw her every single day. My daughter was good. My daughter worked. My daughter was raised here. Yeah.
Anita gently touches the urn with cremated remains of her daughter and remembers how her Kayam came home from a barbecue. How 2 officers came shortly after to arrest her for being intoxicated in a public place. However, Anita shows us the papers where the drug screening states that her daughter was completely alcohol-free. While being held at central booking, the police wouldn't give Kayam the medical attention for her health condition, which evidently led to her unfortunate death inside the Brooklyn cell.
2 officers came to my door to tell me my daughter died. She had a seizure. My daughter never had a seizure in her life. So
She had no previous medical conditions.
All she had was asthma and colitis. But she was fine. She had to take a pill every day for the rest of her life. And she didn't have that. Went down to Brooklyn Hospital. They wouldn't let me see my daughter. Usually when a person dies or drops dead, you're supposed to be able to see your relative and give them their farewell. I didn't have that opportunity. Then finally they told me, your daughter's in the morgue. They couldn't do anything all this time. So they waited about 20 more minutes back and forth, calling, to see if it was okay for me to see my daughter because it was under investigation how she died.
So they were basically
covering up
their negligence of providing help.
Yes. My daughter, that was my daughter. They may have gotten away with, like I said before, but once they killed my daughter, they're not gonna rest until the justice is served and they don't do it again. This is my goal. This is my goal for all the mothers and all the parents that have to go through this. I mean, you don't know how this feels. Nobody knows how it feels.
We've arrived in Bronx, one of the more turbulent neighborhoods in New York City. Inside a local barbershop, which also happens to be a hangout spot for the locals, the people can't get enough of their local police brutality complaints in for the camera.
So as y'all two standing here, I'm walking past, he's like this. And I'm like, take a picture, brother, it'll last longer. And then when I got past, hey, come here. I know the little bro, I ain't gotta stop, I'm not doing nothing wrong. 9 officers surrounding me, hands on gun, and I'm like this. I'm like this, I don't have no weapon. Sir, you wanna know if I have a gun? No, I don't have a gun, so I'm going like this. You're stopping me for a gun, I don't have a gun. Go about your business. I understand you're doing your job, but now you're fishing.
I'm actually afraid to call them. You know what I'm saying? What am I calling them for? And it's gonna be backfired on me.
So you don't feel safe in your community or protected by the police? Well, you don't feel protected by the police.
We protect ourselves.
Street justice.
They consider us bottom feeders. They feel like because we don't know the law or because they feel like we should, because they feel like we are not educated enough to know the law, they feed off of that. So when I walk away, you're not gonna tell me I can't walk away because it's my right to walk away. You understand what I'm saying? So now if you're gonna arrest me for my rights, then I'm gonna fight that.
Drop it! Who's sitting back up? I got a left coming at me. Drop it! Drop it now!
Hi.
How are you?
That's okay.
Scott Reinicke is one of the most well-known lawyers fighting against police brutality in New York.
Mr. Reinicke, how many cases in general have you had solved and had a positive outcome for your clients?
Oh, thousands.
Police brutality.
Police brutality has to be in the high hundreds or thousands. I think police brutality is a real issue in this country. I have a number of cases where people were injured very badly in police chase cases. And when you speak to a police officer and question them about the training they receive in the academy, they will tell you they're never in a real situation.
That's a very good point. But then, with this case, the question is, did the officer have the right to do what he then did? Let's watch on. It's about a couple more minutes here.
Sure. Out of the car, you're gonna get tased. He says, out of the car or you're gonna get tased. Everything's being recorded, son. I got no problem with that. Get out of the car. Yes. Get down on the ground now.
Now the officer kicks the phone out of his hand.
Your hands behind your back. You're under arrest.
Now apparently the kid gets up. There's the 4 shots. Actually, more.
I think a lot of this issue escalated because obviously officers don't like when people talk back to them or don't like when people don't comply with their demands. I think in this situation, though, is different than some of the others because this officer obviously wasn't threatened by any imminent harm.
We can stop this unannounced civil war between communities and the police, the lawyer goes on to say. Simple U.S. citizens have a powerful weapon, and it's not a gun or a rifle, it's the smartphone and a voice.
There's no question, in my 26 years of practicing, I've seen the number of police brutality cases rise, I've seen the number of charges rise, and I think the only reason it's really coming to the forefront is the invention of the cell phone. If it wasn't for the cell phone camera, people wouldn't believe half of the things that go on, and we have these videos to prove it.
I mean, is this a race issue, or is this a class issue, or is this even just an authoritarian issue?
So all these things, racism, authoritarianism, inequality, class issues, right? Psychological issues, all of that is thrown into this pot that's called police brutality.
That's why you do your best with regard to accountability and transparency. You're never going to get rid of racism. That will never happen. It will never, ever happen.
I will f***ing kill you!